Hi, this is Alicia Bowling with Creative Laughter TV Beyond Logic podcast. Today our guest is a psychic medium and at only 28 years old is quickly becoming well recognized for his gifts. It's my pleasure to welcome Joe Perreta to the show. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. I'm really excited to have you because I like the millennial psychics. You know, you always get the seasons one, but you need to talk to the younger ones too because they have a totally different experience. So tell us a little bit about that.
I've always had this growing up. Like you said, I'm 28, so I'm not a baby, but I'm not, some may think I am, depending on what, where
it's a matter of opinion.
What vantage point you're looking at it from. But I've always had this since I'm a kid. Like when I was, it runs in my family. I should start there, really. My grandmother, my mother's mother, used to, when she was alive, she was Sicilian, straight through and through. So very, very mystical people, very psychic people. And she used to read playing cards, my grandmother, and everyone, like in my family and family friends, they always used to be, her name was Rosaria, but everyone called her Sally. So they'd be like, Sally, come over for coffee, bring your cards, read my son, read my daughter, blah, blah, blah. So she used to do that. So I kind of grew up. I mean, she passed when I was 5, so I don't have that many memories of her, but a few of them that I have are actually of her reading people, which I think is so funny now, looking what I do. And then my mother always has prophetic dreams and she's so good with people. She's so empathic. She's an intuitive life coach. So she's very much into all of this too. And then on my father's side of the family, I could sit here and list you all the names of everyone who's psychic and a medium. I mean, it's literally everyone on my dad's side of the family. But my grandmother, her grandmother, when she came over from Italy, her husband passed away and she had something like 7 or 8 kids. You know how it is with those old school Italians. They had like 1 million kids. And she really had no way of making money because she was, from Naples and didn't really work or anything. So she befriended this woman who my grandmother says was like a gypsy, is what she said, in Queens where they lived. And this woman kind of took her in and helped her, and she lived like I think the woman had like a guest house or I don't know, something like that, like, or a separate apartment. And she taught my grandmother, my great grandmother, everything that she knew. All these, like, I don't know if it was spells as much as like just like little home remedies, things like that, and about energy. And so my grandmother grew up around that, and my grandmother reads tarot cards, and people are always like, how did you get into it? And is your family okay with it? And I'm like, my family they encourage it. Like, I come from a line of people who are all just like weird. That's what I always say. Weird people.
The funny thing is, we had talked about that before, that you said, your dad was kind of scared about it at the beginning. What made him turn the corner, considering he had a family of this?
I can't explain his fear because it wasn't a normal, like, he's not really religious or anything like that. I think it just spooked him a little, and he didn't want to believe it, and he would always say he was skeptical, but I was like, yeah, okay, I know you're just afraid of it. And now, that I've been doing this for a while, because I don't live with my parents anymore, but I still read in their porch from time to time, because that was my original reading room on Long Island, and I keep it for, quick things, like if I really have to squeeze somebody in, or just a good space to have. And I swear to God, every time I read there, that week I'll come home and he'll be like, I saw a man looking at me in the kitchen, and my dad's home all day. He's disabled. He can't work. He had a stroke when I was younger. So he's home with my dog and doing stuff around the house all day. And, he's always seeing people. Always, 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 always. And I'm like, this guy went from not believing it, being a skeptic my whole life and being secretly afraid of it, to being a better medium than I am, because he's literally seeing them like in the movie Ghost. So it's just so funny that I think he always had it and he just kind of was afraid of it and shied away from it. But I like to think that now that I do it, it kind of made him feel like, oh, well, this isn't so bad. You know what I mean?
You know what's really interesting? Because I always say that. Well, the first question I always ask, how'd you get this gift? Because, some people give birth and then they get the gift, or some people have an accident. So do you think having this stroke and everything kind of triggered it to kind of activate? Or
I kind of do, actually. I think that may have had some part in it, but I think just knowing my family, I think my father had it his whole life, really, and just didn't. My dad didn't have an easy life growing up. He had a kind of a rough childhood and everything. So I don't think he had the luxury. My parents were great to me. I never wanted for anything. I guess I'm a typical millennial. I got everything I wanted. I'm an only child, but I'm not spoiled. My parents aren't like that. They're very grounded, down to earth people. But I had the luxury of growing up in a home where, I had loving parents. They didn't make me work when I was really, you know what I mean? I wasn't on my own very young. So I had the luxury of exploring the inner worlds of, and the psychic world and, myself and like my mind. Whereas my dad had a childhood where it was just like, he was just trying to like survive and get by.
Well, one of the things that you had said growing up, that you would have these dreams of 9/11 and that they scared you and you saw people dying and,
Yes.
You didn't know how to handle all this. Tell everybody about that, because that's really interesting. That's a big thing to be dreaming about.
Yeah, that was actually my first real I shouldn't say my first psychic experience, but I had one other mediumistic experience. My mother's mother passed away when I was 5, and I woke up in the middle of the night crying for her. And I remember looking up over her shoulder, and I saw my grandmother sitting on the back of a chair, and her blanket was like draped over the chair, and she was sitting on it. And I saw her clear as day, but she was like illuminated. It was the craziest thing. And then I was like, oh my God, I stopped crying. And I was like, wait, she shouldn't be here. What the hell's going on? And, so that was my first experience. But then nothing really happened like that. Nothing crazy. And then when 9/11 happened, I was out with my friends that evening, whatever out meant at 12. I was probably like at the movies or something. And I came home. It was a Friday night. I'll never forget. It was Friday night. And I go to sleep and I had a normal dream. And then I remember the dream kind of shifted, and it was me and my mom driving over a bridge, and I was looking out of the passenger window, and there was a plane, it looked like the shadow of a plane. It wasn't like in detail, like, you see a plane that's metal and it's silver. It was like made of shadow. That's the only way I could describe it. And it was flying like low, parallel to the bridge. And I didn't think anything of it. And I was just like silently watching. And all of a sudden the shadow of the plane merged with the shadow of a building. And there was like this kind of like muffled, but far off in the distance, like, it didn't sound, now looking back, I know it was the sound of an explosion, but you know what it reminded me of? In the cartoons when they used to like fake a thunderstorm and they'd shake that piece of aluminum or like hit it with something?
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of sounded like that. And then all of a sudden the roof of the car was like ripped off. I just remember we were like flipping through the air in this car, and obviously in the dream I was petrified and I was screaming. I was like, Mom, what's going on? And she was screaming. And then in the sky there was this calendar, a big calendar appeared, so weird. And it was flipping through all the days of the year, and then it stopped, and I guess like a dot or something must have landed on a specific day, because something drew me to the following Tuesday, because remember, it was Friday night. And I kept saying, why the hell is this calendar? It's wrong. The week isn't starting on Tuesday. It starts on Monday. That's when I go back to school. In the middle of me flipping through the air and like screaming, I'm thinking this, and I'm like saying this to my mother, and she's like, I don't know, the calendar's wrong. And then I kind of like went from, my point of view, first person, to like third person, and I could actually like zoomed out, and I saw the car fall into like this big pile of rubble, and there was all these tall buildings, but they were all in shadow, and the sky was black and red, and there was just like garbage everywhere and debris and all this stuff. And then I woke up out of the dream, and I was just like, oh my God, like what the hell was it? Well, you have to remember I'm 12, so I really never had like any psychic dreams or anything. I really didn't like, I had heard my mother talking about having dreams about people, and then like they would pass away. Like my mother has this thing whenever she has a dream she's having a baby, somebody always dies. It's till this day it happens. So that happened when I was a kid. Is that because of
the rebirth type deal?
It's funny, when she dreams of someone dying, she finds out someone's pregnant, and when she dreams of giving birth, somebody dies. I guess it's a life and death kind of cycle thing. I knew it in my gut, in my heart of hearts. I knew it meant something. So that Saturday I woke up and I was completely paranoid, and my mother was supposed to go to a friend's house, and she had to drive over an overpass to get there. And I literally begged my mother to the point I drove her crazy that she actually canceled for me. She was like, fine, I won't go. And I was like, Mom, please, you're going to die. You're going to fall off the overpass. I was petrified. I thought, like, because when you're younger, the worst thing that could possibly happen is your mother dying. I'm 12.
Sure, and how do you interpret that stuff at 12? Right. You're a kid.
Right. And I was like so scared. I'm like a gay Italian mama's boy. Like, it was the worst thing in my world that I could possibly have imagined. So Sunday goes by. I'm fine. Monday, I'm okay. Tuesday, 9/11, I'm at school, and they didn't tell us till the end of the day. But I remember, I will never forget this. They wouldn't let anybody leave unless a parent, came and signed you out, picked you up, or called and said that you could leave. So my mother comes and picks me up, and I'm like, Ma, what's wrong? Obviously, there's something wrong. She's like, oh my God, like, there's this attack, and I don't know what's going to go on. Obviously everyone that day was a wreck. I will never forget. I walked into my house and my father had the TV on. The image on the screen was literally what I saw in my dream. It was all the fire and the smoky sky and the shadows of these buildings and all like the debris from the buildings collapsing. Like it was literally exactly what I had seen in my dream. And I was just like, oh my God, I looked at my mother and I was like, Mom, this is my dream. And I remember her like crying and being like, I know, I can't believe it. Like you dreamt about this. It wasn't even like I could have interpreted it wrong, or it was exactly, I mean, to the T what happened that day.
Well, I remember you saying at 13, you said, that's it. I'm giving this up. It's too hard to have these psychic dreams and then also be gay. And it is at that age. I mean, it's hard being this age, right?
It's rough. Well, yeah, and the 9/11 thing is really what sparked it. And then I had other dreams about, other stuff too, just people in my family I would dream about, and then they would die or someone would die. And then I got afraid of the dreams and I was like, all right, this needs to stop. And then I started to actually see stuff. Like I remember one time I was getting out of the shower and I was drying myself and doing whatever. And I looked up in the mirror in the medicine cabinet and I saw a hand holding like ghostly. I like just how you would see it in a movie. It sounds like I'm making it up, but I swear to God, this happened to me. It was translucent and it was holding like a handkerchief or something. And it like floated down like it was like made of air. And I just looked at it and I was like, oh my God, freaked out, ran out in my towel. And I was like, Mom, Dad, oh my God, like you have no idea what I saw. And as I'm saying this to them, the phone rings and my father got a phone call that his aunt died. Like as this was happening.
Oh,
so
wow.
That was what the straw that broke the camel's back. Because after that, I was like, I remember we only had one air conditioner in my house growing up, and it was in my parents' room. So I was sleeping we were going to the city the next day for whatever reason, and I slept on the floor because I had to wake up early and it was hot, and I was sleeping on the floor in their room, and I remember praying because I wasn't a huge believer in anything at that time. So I was like, God, if you're real, if you're there, if you can hear me, I was like, you gotta make this shit stop. I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like every time I'd go to sleep, I literally didn't want to sleep because every time I went to sleep, I was dreaming, and every time I dreamt, someone died or something bad happened. So I was like, can you please just make it go away? And then it really did. Like I didn't have any dreams like that. I mean, a couple of things here and there throughout like my later teen years, but I wasn't scared at that point because it was less in my face and it was more of like an inkling or a knowing, like kind of how I get things now.
So at what point in your life from just saying, okay, I can't do this anymore, I'm too young, I have too much on my plate, did you finally go, okay, I'm ready for these gifts, I'm more grounded, I'm accepting it?
Right. Well, it was actually, wasn't that long ago. It was in 2012. I graduated from Hunter College. I lived in the city close to where I live now, actually. And I, was home from school. I moved back to Long Island and I really had nothing going on. I had no job because I went to school for music. So what job was I going to get? And I was home, so I was just like, what the hell am I going to do with myself? So I decided to get back into meditation or, spirituality, things like that. But I wasn't planning on getting into the psychic thing just yet. And then through I was doing yoga every day, like with the TV and stuff like that. I mean, when I say I was like broke as a joke and I had no job, I mean, like I had nothing going for me at that point, but I was just out of school. So I decided to buy this ebook series, because randomly, I always read tarot cards as a kid, just like as a fun party trick, as a joke. I was never serious about it. I had one aunt who always used to make me read her cards. So that's how I learned them. And, all of a sudden, all of my friends and my friends' friends, they were asking me to read their cards. And I was like, this is weird. I just bought this ebook series and, I'm like getting more into the psychic stuff. And I really wanted to prove to myself that I had some kind of gift and ability. And I'm very skeptical of everything, like till this day. So if I can't experience it myself, I have a doubt. That's just how I am. So then all of a sudden everyone was like, hey, can you read my cards? And I was like, this is really weird because I didn't even know anyone knew that I had them anymore. Like it was just everybody. My cousin Mary, I don't have any siblings, but my cousins are they're all girls. They're like my sisters. So Mary she's married to her husband, and his sister is my cousin as well. And she's a professional astrologer. And we all happened to be at Mary's because she was staying there, and she asked me for a reading. My cousin was like, bring your cards, which was also weird because I didn't I really didn't use my cards a lot, and she just happened to ask me about it. So I give Maria this reading, not even thinking that I'm good. You know what I mean? Like just for like shits and giggles. And my cousin calls me 2 weeks later, and she's like, "You're never gonna believe it." She's like, "But Maria's raving about you. Every single thing that you predicted happened to her in the last 2 weeks." And I was like, "What do you mean? Are you serious?" She was like, "Joe, every single thing that you said happened." So I was like, "Oh my God, that's crazy." So some time went by, and I decided to go to Maria for, actually, you know what? I might have went to Maria already for a reading, actually, because she's, a professional astrologer. I think I have to backtrack a little bit. And she was the first person to tell me I was a medium from her chart, from my chart. I mean, reading my chart. So I kind of was like, it resonated with me on such a deep level, but at the same time, I was like, no, I'm a musician. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I was rebelling against it because it's not what my ego, what it wanted. So then, of course, then the card thing happened, and I kind of embraced it. And she really took me under her wing, and she brought me to an astrology dinner with her astrology group. But there was a lot of psychics and mediums there. And I know Kim Russo. Who's a very good friend of mine. I knew her from her TV show because my mother loved her TV show when it was on at the time. So I watched it, and I remembered watching her and thinking, like, if I do readings ever, like, I want to read like her. Like, she's really good because she's friggin' awesome. And she happened to be at the dinner, and she like sat next to me, and I was like, this is weird. Like, how my first celebrity, you know what I mean? Like, sighting. And I really didn't even realize I was a medium yet. And she just turned to me during the dinner, and she was like, "So you're going to read me, right?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And she was like, "Come on, I know you have this gift." She was like, "Just give me a reading. I know you could do it." So I was like, okay. I had never read anyone without cards. I had never done I had never done it before. So I was just like, all right, let me give it a shot. And everything that I said, she was like, "Oh, yeah. She was like, that was really good." So that's how I got introduced to doing readings. And it was kind of like, it was just like riding a bike. I did it once, I read her, and I haven't stopped since. It just like kind of snowballed into everything. And what really, I mean, we don't even have enough time for me to tell you all the stories that happened to me, but what really made me embrace it is just that, like, the second I put my feelers out there and I was like, okay, let me just see where I can take this. I'm going to suspend disbelief for a little. I gave myself 2 weeks. In that first 2 weeks, I got so many signs, and even up until, like I've only been doing this full time. Like, this is my only job, doing readings, and thankfully, knock on wood, I've been very successful, and it's really worked out well for me. And I know it's because it's what I'm supposed to be doing. But I wasn't doing it full time for like the first, I want to say 2 years. And in that 2 years, I got so many signs and symbols and weird coincidences and just things that people said to me that there was no way in hell. Like, my guides and spirit proved to me without any doubt at all that this is real and I'm supposed to be doing it. Like, that's a whole other show, though, honestly, because there's just so much to happen. But, in short, that's really what made me embrace it, is that I couldn't not. Like, you'd have to be completely in denial I would have had to not have embraced this, because it was just like everything happened short of like God coming down from heaven and being like, "Hey, Joe, this is your mission in life." But I'm a firm believer in when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you don't really have to try it. Everything just kind of flows together. Long story long, that's how I really embraced what happened, because there was just so many things pointing, like all signs point to yes kind of thing.
Well, I know you say in your readings that you absolutely just hate mundane readings, like you're going to have a car, you're going to get this amount of money, you like the deep soul issues. So what is a deep soul issue, and how important is that?
I think personally we're given these intuitive gifts to give those soul readings to people, whether it's from someone that they love in spirit, or from your guides, or from your own intuition, because it's great to validate that someone's there on the other side. I find that with a lot of people who lose children, those are the readings that you need to validate that people are there. You bring up facts that no one could know. They know that they're the soul of whoever it is lives on. Those I wouldn't consider them mundane. Those are very deep too, of course. Messages from spirit, things like that. But I like to heal. Like, even when I used to read tarot cards when I was a kid for fun, I used to use the book, and like the book wouldn't say enough, and I would like add my own spin on it and get a little bit deeper. Like, I've always been doing that. So, I love getting like into people's psyches, and I don't want to say that it's better than therapy, because I'm not a qualified therapist at all. I can't even help myself, but I really do believe that I've had plenty of people say this to me where they're like, "Joe, I've been into therapy for years, and in this hour that I sat with you and talked to my mother, I got everything that I needed in this hour and I've been in therapy for 10 years. You know what I mean? Some people don't realize that we're always operating from a soul level, even if we don't realize it. So, the issues in your life, psychological issues, things like that happen in your life, they're all part of your soul's lesson. It's like the course that you're taking in this lifetime. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like a lot of people seek me out because they're really in grief or they really need help with something. And nothing drives me more crazy than when I'm sitting across from someone in my office or over the phone and I'm trying to get deep about something that's just happened to me. I won't name any names, but there was someone who I read not too long ago that did this. And I was going deep with this person, like really about the issues with another relationship. And all that this person could ask me was, so I'm not going to be alone. So I'm not going to meet someone. And I was just like, I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall here. Like sometimes people are just so wrapped up in their own, ego, what the ego feels it needs, or, with physical world stuff and money. And they just miss the whole point of what like the deeper messages. And those are the readings when I say like mundane readings drive me crazy. Those are the ones that drive me crazy because, I feel like they can give you so much more on the other side, my guide, spirit, and you're just worried about like, all right, so is that guy going to leave his wife or am I going to get that bag? And I know it sounds like kind of silly, but anyone who does this work who's listening knows exactly what I'm talking about because we get it all the time. And I'm not trying to minimize people's issues, but I almost want to say to some people sometimes, like if you're not willing to really dig deep and do the work after a reading, don't even bother coming to me because there's other people who are much more comfortable just reading on the surface, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the way that I read. You know what I mean?
So what does the future hold for you? You're 28 years old. I mean, you're just starting in this great life and, your goal is to help people. Where do you see yourself going with this?
I would love to have a bigger platform, whether that's a television show or like a podcast, like something like this. Or you can't, I'm sure you've heard this a million times and the listeners have too, but it's hard for us to get stuff for ourselves. You can't, it's always skewed a little, or, our guides kind of give it to you, but they give it to you like cryptically. It's hard because you're so involved in your own life. You know what I mean?
Sure. Absolutely.
So I don't have a clear picture of exactly where I'm going. But since I started, my guides have been kind of telling me, like, since I learned to talk to them, that, you have this important, like mission in your life, and you really should be, you're going to reach a lot of people. They've been saying this to me. So I know I'm headed in that direction somewhere with like the media or, just it could even be writing too. I do feel like I'm going to write a book eventually. Maybe not yet, because I feel like I need a little bit more like life experience. I feel like who the hell wants to listen to what a 28-year-old has to say? Half the book would be about...
Souls.
Mine is probably old. I'll take that. But like half my book at this point would probably be about like drinking. So I can't even. I mean, I guess that would be interesting to some people, but maybe not the spiritual community.
Spoken like a true millennial.
Yeah. I'm trying to work on that. But anyway, again, I'm 20. You got to cut me some slack. I'm trying to have a semi-normal life here. But yeah, that's where I know I see myself at some point, whether it's now or whether it's, as I grow and get older, doing something with, I hope it's TV, but again, that could be my ego speaking. Everybody wants to, have a little bit of recognition here and there, and I am an Aries, so we're like made for that stuff. But I definitely feel like, I know that I do this work. I try to do it from the heart and, not from an ego standpoint. And I know I have things that I still have to learn and stuff like that, but I also feel like I have a lot of information that could actually help people. So that's why I feel I know this is going to sound conceited, but I feel like, again, I do this in the right way. And I know I try to come from the heart as much as possible. And not everyone who does this work does that. A lot of it's ego based. And I feel like, I would like to put myself out there so I could give people like the actual messages that spirit wants you to hear, and not just, like the ego thing or the hidden agenda stuff. Or I find that, it's in every career, every field has its, people that don't take it the right way. And, the field of spirituality and mediums and psychics it's no different, and thankfully, you and I know a lot of the same, psychics and mediums. I saw on your on the website for the podcast that, there's a lot of really good people that, you're affiliated with and that I'm affiliated with. So we definitely have like a nice network where I feel like we all kind of help each other out and, spread kind of the same word, if you know what I mean.
I agree with you. And my prediction is you're going to go really far. And I would like to thank you so much for joining the podcast. And if you want to learn, you're very welcome. It was a joy. We're going to follow up with you too. If you'd like to learn more about Joe, go to his website, www.joeperreta.com. Book a reading. He's really cool. And also check out our monthly Psychics for Group sessions. And remember, you create your life, you create your future. This is Alicia Bowling with Beyond Logic.